When your dog comes and sits beside you while you cry, do you actually know what they are doing? Most people assume it is sweetness, a warm body close to yours, a wet nose pressed against your hand, that quiet weight settling in beside you when everything feels too heavy to carry alone. But behind that moment, there is something far deeper than comfort, something rooted in biology, in evolution, and in a bond that science has spent decades trying to fully explain. Because what your dog is doing when you cry is not random. It is not instinct in the simple sense of the word, and it is not projection. There is one finding that I especially need you to understand. When researchers at Johns Hopkins studied what dogs actually do when their owners are in distress, what they found will change the way you see every single moment your dog has ever chosen to be near you. Let us start with what your dog is actually detecting. 1. They are not guessing that you are upset. They know. Your dog's nose is somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive than yours. When humans experience grief, fear, or deep sadness, our body chemistry changes at a hormonal level. Cortisol rises, adrenaline shifts. The chemical signature of distress is literally present in our sweat, our breath, the air around us. And your dog picks up on all of it before a single tear has fallen. A study from a Florida research lab found that the scent of human tears carries specific chemical signals that dogs detect and respond to with concern. Your dog does not see you cry and then decide to investigate. They have already registered your distress through their nose before you have processed it yourself. Beyond scent, they are reading your face. Research has shown that dogs demonstrate what scientists call a left gaze bias, specifically with human faces, meaning they have evolved to look first at the most emotionally expressive side of a human expression. They can distinguish between happy and sad human faces, even in photographs of complete strangers. It is wired into them across 15,000 years of paying attention to us. And your posture changes when you are grieving. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows or becomes irregular. Your movements shift in ways that are subtle to another human, but obvious to an animal that has spent thousands of generations reading every signal a human body sends. 2. What they do next is not passive. This is where most people's understanding stops. They know their dog sits with them when they are sad, but researchers wanted to know something more specific. Would a dog actually take action to help a distressed person, not just sit near them? The Johns Hopkins University study answered that directly. Owners were placed behind a clear door, held shut with magnets. The dogs could see them and hear them. Some owners were asked to hum a familiar tune. Others were asked to cry. The dogs whose owners were crying opened the door 3 times faster than those whose owners were humming. They pushed through a physical barrier to reach someone in pain. That is not a pet being sweet. That is a decision made under emotional urgency. And here is the part of that study that stops people. The dogs who could not open the door were not indifferent. They were overwhelmed. Their stress levels were the highest of any group measured. They cared so much they could not function through it. Researchers concluded that these dogs were not failing to help. They were experiencing a form of distress so acute it paralyzed the response. Think about what that means. Your dog sitting beside you when you cry is not performing comfort. They are sitting with you through something that is costing them something, too. 3. They are crossing species to do something most animals never do. Here is a finding that is genuinely difficult to absorb. University of London researchers found that dogs were significantly more likely to approach a person who was crying than a person who was humming or quietly talking. And the approach was not curious or investigative in the way a dog might approach an unfamiliar sound. It was submissive, heads low, body soft, movements slow. The dogs were recognizing distress and responding with appeasement and care, rather than interest or alertness. That distinction matters. Researchers describe this as evidence of a primitive but real form of cross-species empathy. Your dog is not just noticing that something is different. They are responding to the emotional content of what they are seeing and hearing. That is a categorically different thing. 4. Your specific scent is the one their reward center lights up for. We covered this briefly, but it deserves its own moment because the Emory University finding is one of the most cited pieces of evidence in the study of the human-canine bond. Researchers exposed dogs to a range of scents: other dogs, familiar humans, unfamiliar humans, food. They used brain imaging to track which scents triggered the reward center, the area associated with positive anticipation and emotional significance. Only one scent produced consistent activation in that reward region. Yours, not food, not another dog. The scent of the specific person a dog is bonded to lights up the part of their brain built for love and pleasure. So when you are grieving and your dog presses close to you, part of what is happening is that your presence itself is neurologically rewarding to them. You are not just a person they live with. You are the signal their brain was shaped to seek. 5. The oxytocin loop between you is real, and it activates when you need it most. A 2015 study published in the journal Science showed that mutual gazing between dogs and their owners triggered a significant rise in oxytocin in both the dog and the human, the same bonding hormone that flows between a mother and her newborn during their first moments together. Your dog does not need to do anything elaborate to initiate this. They just look at you, and that look, held in a quiet moment when you are falling apart, starts a biochemical process that your nervous system registers as safety. Oxytocin suppresses the stress response. It lowers cortisol. It slows the heart rate and quiets the physiological alarm system that grief keeps triggering. Your dog, sitting beside you, looking at you softly, is not simply offering emotional presence. They are participating in a documented biological loop that your body responds to at a measurable level. 6. They have been building a map of you every day you have shared. This is the part that tends to hit people the hardest. Dogs who share consistent space with their owners build a detailed internal model of what that person's baseline looks and feels like. Their resting posture, the rhythm of their breathing on an ordinary evening, the particular way they move through the house when everything is fine. So when grief arrives and the baseline shifts, your dog does not need a signal. They already know. Researchers studying dog behavior during owner illness and emotional distress consistently note that dogs become more attentive and physically closer during these periods without any cue from the owner. They are not responding to a request. They are responding to a deviation from the person they have memorized with devotion over months and years. 7. What they are feeling is not simple. Scientists continue to debate the exact nature of dog emotion, the distinction between true empathy and emotional contagion, the question of whether dogs experience a felt sense of another's pain or simply mirror the emotional state they detect, remains genuinely open in the research. What is not debated is that the response is real, that it is directed, and that it is specifically triggered by human distress rather than any unfamiliar sound or situation. Dogs showed physiological stress when hearing their owner cry. They chose to approach rather than withdraw when someone was in pain. They overcame physical obstacles to reach a person in distress. You can call that emotional contagion if the word empathy feels too large. The behavior is the same either way. 8. Not every dog responds identically, and it matters to understand why. A naturally anxious dog may retreat when their owner's grief is overwhelming. That withdrawal is not absence of care. Research suggests those dogs are often the most physiologically activated by the distress they detect, too flooded by their own stress response to take action. Dogs with a confident, secure attachment to their owner are more likely to move toward and remain with a person who is crying. Dogs bred for generations of close cooperative work alongside humans tend to show heightened sensitivity to emotional cues. But empathy in some form is not the property of any one breed. The depth of the bond between you and your specific dog is the most reliable predictor of how and whether they respond. 9. What this means when you are grieving something real. If you are going through a loss right now, or if you have recently, and your dog has been following you from room to room, sleeping closer than usual, resting their head in your lap without being invited, that behavior is not incidental. Research looking at people who had recently lost a loved one found that those who had photographs of their dogs shown to them shortly after the loss reported fewer intrusive thoughts and measurably higher scores on well-being assessments. The dog did not replace what was lost. Nothing does. But the presence of that bond, even in a photograph, was enough to shift the brain's stress load. In person, that effect is compounded by every channel your dog is working through simultaneously. Scent, touch, oxytocin, the mapped familiarity of their body next to yours, the sound of their breathing. 10. And what your dog may need from you in return. This is rarely discussed, but it belongs here. Dogs are not invulnerable to your pain. Research has confirmed that dogs living with grieving owners can develop their own stress responses, behavioral changes, increased clinginess, or, in some cases, withdrawal. They are absorbing what you are going through. The same sensitivity that makes them able to find you in your hardest moments means they are also carrying a version of it alongside you. You do not need to hide your grief from your dog, but knowing that they are genuinely affected by it, not performatively, but biologically, means the relationship running through your hardest days is not one-sided. They are doing something real, and somewhere in the part of your dog that has been refined across 15,000 years, specifically to find you, read you, and stay beside you. That has always been the point. Every soft approach in a difficult moment, every weight settling beside you before you asked, every nose pressed into your hand while you sat on the floor and came apart quietly. None of it was accidental. They read it in your face, in your scent, in the shift of your chemistry, in the change in your breath. And then they chose to come.